Welcome in. It's McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. It is 7 o'clock. It's Friday, October 3rd. We are on the eve of week 6 of the college football season. Guys, we are nearly halfway. It's kind of crazy how quickly it's gone. I'm a little taken aback at how amazingly good the first month of the season was and how good the next month of the season is going to be. Now, there will be a few more bye weeks, so maybe there's not, quote, as much inventory. But if you really look at it, man, the next month, we have 5 weeks. Exactly. Like, think about this. If you're an Alabama fan, think about the matchups that you have, how stressful the next 4 weeks are going to be. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be a phenomenal stress. As a fan, like, it's nice to know that you got to be at your best every week. Like, as a player, it's nice to know, hey, you got to be ready to roll every week. Because guess what? Missouri on the road, Vanderbilt this weekend, Tennessee at home. Tough games before going to South Carolina. Those are 4 very tough games in the month of October. If you're an Auburn fan, you obviously get this week off. But if you look at what's coming up for Auburn, Georgia, Missouri, at Arkansas. 3 tough games. Who knows what Arkansas is going to be in a couple weeks. But Georgia, Missouri, I mean, those 2 teams could very well be in the top 15. Georgia already is. Missouri might be. By the time you get there, there's a lot of intrigue here in the next couple weeks, man. And this is where we're going as a college football world. We're going to have more parity. And I know we've said this before. I really think that we're going to get to the point in which fans get to the point and analysts get to the point as we devolve from the 14 playoff era and the pre-NIL era, we are looking at a very, very wide landscape and not a very tall landscape. Meaning, I think a really good year is going to be 9-3. I think fan expectations will adjust to this, but it's going to take a little while to get there because fan expectations, I think at this point, are still 11-1 or better, 10-2 or better. And I do believe that maybe starting this year, 9-3 is going to be automatic playoff lock, especially when we get into a 9-game conference season. Then an 8-game conference season, it feels like 9-3 is playoff lock this year. How many teams do you guys have on upset alert this week? And I'll go through it here in a little bit. Like, we're going to have a fun show today. And we'll have Stanford Steve join us here in 27 minutes. He can tell us who he has on upset alert. But I went through last night, just looking at it, just taking a peek at it. And I don't count upset alert necessarily as the teams are guaranteed to lose, okay? Like, I don't usually qualify, like, guaranteed to lose, right? The way I usually go about, quote, upset alert, is I just don't feel very good about them being able to cover that spread. And that spread might not be very tight, or that might not be very much. So of the teams that are currently in the top 25, here's how many I have potentially going down this weekend. All right? I think Miami and or Florida State, they're playing each other, so naturally that one makes sense, right? But I think Miami could go down this weekend. That's not a popular sentiment. Miami's been my favorite team I've watched this year. I don't think there's a team that's more complete than what I've seen from Miami up to this point. They're the real deal. I think Virginia's going down this week. They're a dog at Louisville. So that's one less team in the top 25 to be concerned about. Texas needs to be very careful this weekend. They're on the road to Florida. Florida's 1-3. Texas 3-1. Top 10 in the country. And they're a 5.5-point favorite. Problem is, Texas doesn't look great offensively. Not that Florida has. But both defenses look pretty stout. I think Illinois needs to be careful this weekend against Purdue. Illinois, great win last week against SC. Start reading their press clippings. 2 weeks removed from a 56-point beatdown. Boom, Purdue goes and gives them a tight match. A close game. I think Iowa State is going to lose this weekend. They're a top 14 team right now. They're undefeated. Playing Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati gets them. Cincinnati's got a better quarterback. Cincinnati's got a little more firepower. Cincinnati might be beat up. They got a little more firepower. So what I'm getting at is like we have so many games. That's just this week. And I didn't even mention Vandy Bama. Like y'all know what that game's all about. It's gonna be a tough game. It's a good Vandy team. It's gonna be a tough game. Looking forward to watching it. I'll be on the call. ABC 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central. But if you look even at next week, man, like how many people, even as frustrated as you might be as an Auburn fan, how many people think, yep, no chance against Georgia? How many people think that? Even the most dejected Auburn fan on planet Earth knows they have a pretty good shot to take down Georgia at home. They absolutely have a real good chance. It's Jordan Hare after all. That's next week, right? So we're still a week away from it, but you guys know that that's going to be a game. You guys know that Auburn at night, in all likelihood, is going to make that thing pretty dang interesting. There's a million examples of those. So I'm really looking forward to kind of continuing to navigate throughout the schedule because I just went through October yesterday. I'm like, goodness gracious alive. Like, if teams go 2-2, they should feel pretty good about their October slate. And those are teams with expectations. Going to be wild, man. Going to be fun to watch. All right, we're going to really get into today's games. We also, a little later in the show, I think there's going to be a moment in the show in which we can kind of talk about some September superlatives, some teams that are doing a good job. We're going to talk about a little bit, probably in the 8 o'clock hour, a little bit about college football and its popularity, which, guys, some of the numbers as far as the college football popularity, it's insane. I mean, it really is. It is absolutely insane. Wait till you see some of these numbers that I share with you a little later in the show. Everybody's saying, oh, the sport's broken. Oh, the sport's dead. Oh, the sport's not what it once was. Think again, guys. The numbers, especially amongst key demographics, are outrageous. And guess what? It's not slowing down. It's only going to get better. It's only going to get bigger. And this is when we have games involving Kent State and Oklahoma this year. Well, a year from now, when we're playing 9 conference games, we're going to have incredible matchups every single week starting the last weekend of September. Insane. It's going to be unbelievable. I can't wait for it. It's going to be ridiculous. So I can't wait. And I'll tell you guys this information now. I will also admit that some of this, like big data and all that stuff being in play, that does impact the ratings, so to speak. But the demographic increases are really, really good. College football has never been stronger, and I will tell you why a little bit later in the show. We also are going to have a couple other folks join the show a little later. I'm looking forward to talking to Joe Cook. Manny Navarro is going to join the show, talk a little bit about Miami and Florida State. Because Miami is, like I said, I think they're one of the best teams in college football, if not the best. Them and Ohio State, it'd be close to me between the two. Very close. I'm not sure I'd really lean heavily in one direction or the other. Probably lean slight Ohio State, but if those two teams played right now, I'd say it's probably pretty close. So we'll see exactly how it goes, but we'll talk to Manny Navarro about that a little later on in the show. We'll talk to Stanford Steve in 21 minutes, like I said, as we get ready to dive in to some of these weekend's games. We'll start with the Alabama Crimson Tide. And I have obviously prepped this game like there's no tomorrow. Just an outrageous amount of prep for this game. Why? I'm just fascinated by it. I really am. I'm fascinated by it. And it's going to be so highly entertaining that I went back and I watched last year's game. And I'm not joking when I say this. I'm not exaggerating when I say this. Watching last year's Bama and Vanderbilt game was, I'm not sure I have a better word to describe it than it was quite literally miraculous. And not like it wasn't like, obviously Vanderbilt's a very good football team and their level of execution, particularly in the second half, was beautiful. It was a sight to behold. It was their game plan executed to perfection. To perfection. And for example, Vanderbilt had 75 offensive snaps to Alabama's 45. Vanderbilt was 12 of 18 on third down in that football game. 12 of 8. I mean, and honestly, here was one of the takeaways that I remember last year in watching it back. It was one of the more, from a fan standpoint, one of the more demoralizing watches I think I've ever seen. Not because of Vanderbilt and who Vanderbilt was at the time. It was because it felt like every time you got a chance to not throw a punch and you have them squared up, if you're in a fight, it's like, oh man, I'm about to land this blow and it's going to end the fight. It's going to be amazing. Well, that little move that the boxer makes to his left, right, ducks, what have you, all of a sudden I whiff. And now I'm more tired because of the whiff, and he's just pounding me with body shots over and over and over again. Like, that's what it was like watching that game yesterday. But one of the takeaways, or watching that game last year, one of the takeaways I had, though, going back and revisiting it, is there were ample opportunities last year for Alabama to completely shut the door. I mean, to completely say, all right, enough is enough, let's go. And it was, I guess I had forgotten, I had kind of forgotten how it went. I had kind of forgotten how things were. Vandy was masterful in the game. Masterful. But there was a point in which they're up 13-0. Bam had run 3 offensive snaps. McElroy throws the pick 6. It was deflected up perfectly, wading into the arms of Robinette. It was wild. It was absolutely wild. But Alabama actually had several chances to get off the field. And a few chances in which they actually did. When their defense literally got off the field. And either a penalty or a mistake leads to an additional however many yards of offense. Do you realize last year, and this was something I also didn't realize, Alabama held Vanderbilt to 3.1 yards per carry. We've been talking so much about, how is Alabama going to stop the run against Vanderbilt? Man, they got to be disciplined. Man, they got to do this. Man, they got to do that. Alabama's defense had 3.1 yards per carry given up against Vandy last year. And I was surprised. I've just remembered Vandy just completely gashing them, right? And a couple of them were on kind of glorified runs where it was a shovel pass to the inside. There were 2 plays for 66 yards on a shovel pass. One was end of half that was rather meaningless. One was later in the game where it was rather significant. But it wasn't like Vandy just went up and down the field. And I had kind of forgotten that. It felt like to me Vandy was going up and down the field with how I remember it. And that was not the case when going back and revisiting it. Vandy's leading rusher in the game was Cedric Alexander. He had 64 yards. Good day, but not like one. If you were to ask me how many yards did Vandy run for against Bama last year, I would have said 200 plus. I just feel like they went up and down the field. So it just took me a little while to realize. I was like, goodness gracious, I guess I just misremembered how this game really went down. The game really was determined by 2 significant turnovers. The fumble by McElroy in the backfield was enormous. Is at that time where Bama was getting ready to make a run, getting ready to go do it. They were down 28-33. They're in plus territory. They had just completed back-to-back passes for 20 and 16 yards. And then McElroy takes a sack. Fumble at the Vandy 47. They pick it up. And then they ultimately go right down the field in 4.5 minutes for the touchdown that essentially put it on ice. So it was crazy. Just a crazy, crazy game, wild game, but not as much of a... It was not as horrendous a performance as I remembered it being. Does that make sense? So I think this will be a very interesting game this weekend. I actually think Bama will play pretty well on the defensive side. I think Bama will do a pretty good job with their eyes because their eyes were not as bad in going back and watching it as I thought they were. I've seen their eyes worse, put it this way. than they were against Vanderbilt last year. So I look forward to kind of watching that game. We'll do more on that game here in just a little bit. A couple other big games I want to get to here on the other side. Take a quick break. Give you a little more on Bama Vandy as well. One other thing that I found fascinating in diving into this matchup a little bit. It'll be up just next, right here on Mac and Cube. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning on Jocks 94.5. Week 6 of the college football season is upon us, and a lot of really, really intriguing matchups. There's a few matchups this weekend, guys, that are really flying under the radar. There's a lot of big numbers out there on the Vegas board. Speaking of the Vegas board, we will get Stanford Steve up here in about 11 minutes so that we can talk with him about what he makes of the board this weekend and where we might be able to find some winners. But I look at this weekend, and I think it's one of those weekends where, all right, there's two ranked matchups. All right, there's a few games that are kind of blah. I feel like every time we have a weekend like this, it ends up delivering highly surprising results. Doesn't that always seem to be the case? Doesn't that always seem to happen when it's like, yeah, I don't know. Wisconsin, Michigan doesn't do much for me. I don't know. Are you really excited about Oklahoma State, Arizona? I don't know. Boise at Notre Dame. You know what I mean? Like every time we have a weekend like this, where there's not a lot of ranked matchups, where some of these games are kind of flying under the radar, it normally leads to surprising results.
Don't want to call it
Now,
upset Saturday, but
no.
there generally are a couple, not every single one, but surprised if we come back Monday and okay, maybe Boise didn't upset Notre Dame and all of these, but two of them happened, maybe.
Yeah, like if Wisconsin beat Michigan at home, that would be shocking to many. Why? Because Wisconsin's got quarterback problems. To the point where we literally don't even know who they're playing at quarterback. The guy that started against Bama, Danny O'Neal, he's banged up. The starter that started the season, Billy Edwards, he's banged up. There's third string quarterback is a freshman. I don't even know if he's good. I know nothing about this kid. He might be all right. I have no idea. So I don't even know who's starting at quarterback for Wisconsin. And yet, nameless, faceless quarterback for the Badgers, if they beat Michigan, I would not be that surprised. And people are looking at it and said, oh, God, Wisconsin got beat badly at home by Maryland? They had 2 kicks blocked in the game. They had 2 significant mistakes. One in which they're about to score a touchdown, the center snaps over his head, the guy loses 30 yards. The other, they throw a pick in the plus territory that's returned all the way to the opposite 5. Like, that was like worst case scenario games. And I happen to think when you're a team that's struggling and your home crowd is booing your own team, it's easier to go on the road. And guess what? The Big House, not a remarkably hostile environment. I think Wisconsin actually will be somewhat competitive in that game. I'm shocked to say that because, frankly, on paper, they shouldn't be, especially knowing the challenges they have with their quarterback spot.
But that's the kind of weekend that this is, a game like that, you can see it happening.
100%. There's a pathway is what I'm saying. And you're 100% right, Xavier. Like, and I'll get Damien on this too. Like, for example, Florida has been terrible this year, right? They're almost in some ways unwatchable. Like, really. Like, I love Billy. I love the Florida Gator program. I've always had a tremendous respect for the Florida Gator program. Watch. They're like rock fights. And they're not the most appetizing thing. Now, I, as like a kind of sicko, like, I like watching Iowa. You know, like, I like watching games that are complete grinded out slugfest. Like, it does something for me. To me, Ohio State, Texas was a phenomenal watch. And it was completely unwatchable to most of the country, even though 16 million people watched it. But it was a hard watch. There's no denying that. So, if I'm putting Texas as a hard watch team and Florida as a hard watch team, both those teams probably going to race to, I don't know, 17 wins it? Maybe. Would you be that surprised if a top 10 team went to the Swamp and lost to a 1-3 Gator team that's desperate?
I wouldn't in that case, and I know it's different. It's last year, and they weren't necessarily top 10, but we saw Ole Miss lose to Florida last year. And while granted, I think Florida last year is better than Florida this year, and I think Ole Miss this year is better than last. It still happened. It's still
correct.
Florida, for the most part, I still think has enough talent, and Texas has shown that they're not living up to their potential right now to where Texas can lose this game.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those where you got to be super careful, super careful if you are the Texas Longhorns. I think you can win the game. I think if you basically don't turn it over, I think you win the game, but you got to be super careful. If Houston beat Texas Tech, would that shock you? Texas Tech's ranked number 11. By the way, I'd have them in the top 10. That team is legit. I mean, legit. Texas right now about a 10-point favorite. Thereabouts. Like, would that shock you? Shouldn't. If Florida State beat Miami, would that shock you? No.
No.
It might shock you, Damien, because you're a Florida State hater.
No. Not at all.
But we tried to tell you to be careful with Virginia last week, and no one wanted to listen to that.
I definitely did not want to listen to it. I thought they had that one in the bag.
Dude, road games.
They're tough.
You don't win on the road in college football anymore. Like, it doesn't happen. Tell me how many teams have like gone on the road and like looked really good so far this year.
Alabama one time.
Correct.
That's about it.
That was a fantastic win last week. There's no denying. Ohio State looked great on the road. Oregon looked great on the road.
Yeah.
There's not many, though. Like, Indiana scores 56 the week before, and they scored 20. Or, excuse me, they scored 63 the week before against Illinois. They scored 20 on the road against Iowa last week. I mean, it's hard to win. Tennessee, you think they looked good last week? They won. They didn't look great. Georgia Tech needed kind of a miracle in overtime, and the officials kind of helped them out a little bit to get a win on the road at Wake Forest, who, by the way, not good football team. USC, a complete juggernaut through the first 3 or 4 games of the year. They go on the road to Illinois, couldn't play dead in the Western on defense, and they were killing people, sacking the quarterback, getting after him, stopping the run. They got nothing going. Colorado has been terrible. And BYU sneaks by with a pretty tremendous second half comeback. I mean, it's hard to win on the road, man. It's real hard to win on the road. Louisville needs, they're undefeated. They need a 17-point second half and shut out Pittsburgh to get back and somehow win that game. Remarkable. It's hard to win on the road, dude. So I'm telling you, you look at some of these games, these road games, if you can somehow steal, you're going to have about 5 a year. If you can somehow steal 3 games on the road and take care of business at home, you are cooking. That's a heck of a year. But if you have 4 games at home and a neutral site or whatnot, that becomes a little bit trickier. I look at Georgia, man. They were fortunate to get that win at Tennessee. No doubt, right? Real fortunate. They still have a road trip to Mississippi State. Still have a road trip to Auburn. They only have 3 legitimate road games this year. They got one. If they can get one more, forget about it. Unbelievable, because they lost one at home, so that balanced things out. I think it's hard to win on the road, dude. Really, really hard. I want to get back to this Bama Vandy game for a second. I was just looking through a few things. And I got to visit with Diego Pavia yesterday. First time I really talked to him. Talked to him a little bit at media days. That dude, he say what you want about him, like his arrogance. First of all, I'll just ask this, open-ended. John Saber, we'll start with you. How do you feel about Diego Pavia? Super open-ended. You can take any direction.
I feel he's Johnny Manziel light. I feel like he has the arrogance of Manziel, but not as much. But I also feel like he's a very good quarterback, but not a great quarterback like him.
All right, go ahead, Damian. Open-ended. How do you feel about Diego Pavia?
He's the villain that college football needs, but also he has. If he wasn't as brash, he would have one of the better stories of college football because of the fact that he's been an underdog essentially the entire time, and he relishes in the role for sure. Coming from New Mexico State, making them relevant, and then going to Vanderbilt and pulling off, some of the craziest things that we've seen as of late, knocking off number 1 team in the nation in Alabama last year. So, I mean, he's easy to hate, but also if he was on your team, you would literally die for him on the field.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't think he is a villain. Like that was my initial impression. Like, oh, he's the villain. Like everyone views him as the villain, but he's like the ultimate underdog.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there has never been a bigger underdog. We were talking with him yesterday, and I was by myself, so I literally talked to him for probably 20 minutes. Molly was traveling, and Sean was calling. What was Sean doing? No, he had something going on. Oh, he had, you know what he had? He had, that thing. Oh, yeah, playoff baseball.
Yeah, I forgot that's going
During
on.
football season. What is he thinking? So we're sitting there talking to him and just having a good conversation. And he was just fascinating. Do you realize that coming out of high school, he was like a diehard SEC fan. Like he wanted to go to the SEC more than anything in the world. He's from Albuquerque, New Mexico. But like he grew up watching the SEC. He was like, that's where I want to play. Like I will do whatever it takes to go play in the SEC. So you know what he was going to do? He loved Baker Mayfield and his story. And he loved how Baker Mayfield walked on at Texas Tech, won the starting job as a true freshman, transferred to Oklahoma, and then ultimately won the job there. He was going to walk on to Oklahoma because he loved Baker Mayfield's story so much and that he was a self-made guy and that was going to go and do it. But Oklahoma didn't offer, you know what he was going to do? Like, they didn't offer him a preferred walk-on. He was going to just go and, like, he just thought you just show up on campus and try out. Seriously, he was going to, like, go, like, walk out there, like Vinny Capali or whatever in the story, you know, the Disney story with Mark Wahlberg. You know the one I'm talking about?
Invincible.
Invincible,
Vince
yeah.
Papali.
Vince Papali, yeah, that's it. So he thought he'd just walk out there and like just try out, like start throwing it around a little bit and like, hey, that kid looks pretty good. We'll take him. That was like his plan. And all of a sudden a JUCO approached him, was like, hey, no, why don't you come over here and you can play for us? Goes, plays in the JUCO. New Mexico State is at the championship game in the JUCO. The starting quarterback for the other team was extended an offer by New Mexico State. And Diego was so ticked off that the other guy had an offer and he didn't, that he's like, even if I don't win this game, like I'm going to completely ball out. I have to play well. It's my only chance to get a scholarship is to play well in this game, in the championship. And he like totally balls out. All of a sudden, the guy from the other school gets his offer taken, and then Diego gets it, and the rest is history. And he still knows the guy's name. He knows exactly where that guy's been. Like he's keeping tabs. Like he's that guy on the other JUCO teams, like on the hit list. Like every one of us has a guy on the hit list, right? Like the guy that you were competing with. Mine was Chad Joyce in 8th grade, Jordan Zier in 9th grade and 10th grade, Zane Wilson in 11th grade. So like everyone has that guy on the hit list. Like he still remembers this guy and can tell you exactly where he's at and where he's been traveling to the last few years because he wanted to not just win, but bury him. And that's the type of competitor this kid is. Like how crazy is that? Like he had to ball out. He had one opportunity, one game to go and do it, and he did it. Pretty dang cool. So I think he's a guy that regardless of how brash he is, regardless of how outspoken he is, I think he's a guy that you should root for. And I know you're not going to root for him against your team this weekend, but he's a fascinating story and a guy that took the road less traveled to get to the highest levels of the sport. This was his dream to be playing in the SEC from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Pretty dang cool. Really, really dang cool. All right, when we come back, Stanford Steve joins us next on Mac and Cube. Wow, Steve going with what if God was one of us? This Alanis's edition?
Close, Joan Osborne, but basically same
Yeah, I
thing.
was going to say. Wow, all right. All right, Stanford Steve joins us now. Thanks to our friends at Atlas Senior Living, ATLASSeniorliving.com. Click on the football banner, enter your picks. Each week is a chance to win a $150 Amazon gift card. Want to give a shout out to the winners from week 5, Lisa Stauffer and Brandon Bishop. They won the public contest, and then Mr. Robert Rosa from the Goldton at St. Petersburg in St. Petersburg, Florida. He won the resident winner. Atlas Senior Living does an amazing job. And they take care of your loved ones like you wouldn't believe. And they just expanded their Florida portfolio with the Goldton at Lake Nona. So if you have some loved ones down in the area in Orlando, strongly consider going and checking out Atlas Senior Living. That's ATLASSeniorliving.com. They always sponsor our segment with Stanford Steve. Stanford, how are you, my friend? Welcome to Alabama.
What's up, my man? How are you? Good to see you. Good to talk to you. Am I going to see you later?
Yeah, I could be down for some pops.
All right.
What time are you done with television?
6 p.m. Sports Center is my latest, so probably right around 5. Or
Perfect.
maybe 4. If we could tape it, it'd be great.
Wow. Television magic. Just grinding all the way to 4 o'clock. Wow. Unreal.
We're trying. We're trying.
Don't you have a production meeting?
Yes, sir. Yep. Headed over there after I talk to you.
Oh, wow. Look at you. Morning production meeting. Go time.
Oh, yeah.
And I believe you're going to Coach Saban's house tonight, too, no?
Possibly. Yes. There could be some transportation involved. We're getting it all in. Got a great dinner last night at 5. Went over, saw Tripp and the boys at Ennis for the NFL game. We're getting it in T-Town. It is popping. It's good.
You can
good
say
to be
Ennis
back.
free. It's fine. Tripp's a friend of the show and a friend of mine. So it's perfectly good. We'll give freebies out here. As long as they pay it forward on our bar.
Oh, they did.
All right, let's
did.
talk quickly about the weekend.
Yeah.
I had a hard time. I thought the board last week was ripe for success, and it just didn't really materialize. There's some chalk that flew. It was definitely a little bit of a weird week.
Mm-hmm.
So I took one on the chin a little bit last week, to be honest with you. I love the opportunity to get back on the saddle this week. Anything catching your eye right off the gate?
Yeah, some road favorites, Greg.
Oh God, don't start with that. Oh.
No. I'm not saying I'm pulling the trigger, but I think the spot they're in is really interesting. And the one that sticks out is Washington going to Maryland, just because Loxley's never won off a bye, and they're off a bye. And as good as Ohio State was, I still think there's a lot of good on that Washington team.
I'm with you.
Now they got banged up, but I thought they held their own on the line of scrimmage. And Damon, mistakes he makes when he's trying to press, taking a sack on a screen, you can't do that. Then the fake field goal goes, and then I was texting you about, you get the ball first to go on the 2. If you're pulling it up, you've got to get 7. And the littlest things, man, just execution. They couldn't do it, but I think that's a really, really good football team. And I'm still not there with Maryland. I love what they did. Got to see Malik play in high school. He's a DMV kid. I'm really happy for what he's done. But every time Maryland gets to this situation, I go back a couple years ago, a Friday night to Iowa, blown out. Penn State came in, blown out. I don't think they have the guys up front to match Washington, who I was impressed with, as I mentioned. So everybody's going to throw the travel in my face. I get it, but I just really think Washington's that much better of a football team there.
I'm a little snake bit after I thought USC was a much better football team than Illinois. That's the problem. It's I'm just hesitant to pull the trigger.
I hear you.
There's a few big numbers out there. Like I'll give you an example on one that I can't talk the biggest degenerate in the world into this bet. I kind of like taking the points with Wisconsin. I know it sounds insane. I get it. Wisconsin's issues are at corner. Wisconsin's issues are not stopping the run. They'll hold up front. I feel pretty good about that. I don't know if their offensive line can hold up, but if I look at them, like their numbers offensively are embarrassingly bad. But a lot of
Yep.
that has to do with the fact that they can't get out of their own way. Like, for example, last week they're snapping it over guys' heads. They're doing trick plays and plus territory after they string a couple things together. If they just get back to the basics, I think they can
Yeah.
run the football. So can you take Wisconsin here, not knowing their quarterback situation, getting 17 a hook?
Yeah, I mean, that thing was at 20, and now it's at, as you mentioned, 17 a hook. So that makes me think Edwards is going to play, which we still haven't seen. He got hurt in the second quarter of the first game this year.
I think he played 14 snaps.
Yeah, like you have no idea what they're going to look like. I think the other interesting one is that being a night game scares me a little bit in the Big Ten, but Minnesota, like Ohio State really going and putting the wood to Washington, as we just mentioned. Minnesota is always a very well-coached football team, and getting 23.5. We've seen that Ohio State offense. It's not where I think it's going to be at the end of the season, but they're pretty methodical in their approach and what they've shown. They've obviously found their guy, Bo Jackson, as running back, but it's intermediate. They still do stuff I wish a lot of other teams did. I thought that helped them last week. If teams are going to play 15 yards off Jeremiah Smith, just throw him the ball right now. Take the 5 yards and go. That stuff helps you attain the ball, keep the other team off the field, and helps you on drives. So I look at Minnesota. The bad losses are what scares me, because if it gets out of hand, it's done. They're not gonna have firepower to come back and score with Ohio State. But 23.5 in a conference game with what Ohio State did last week is a lot to me.
I don't see how they score. That's my problem.
Yeah.
I'm all for taking 3 touchdowns plus. I think Ohio State's offense is very much a methodical outfit. They're a ball control team. No one wants to say that, but that's what they are.
Yep.
And it's not a slight. They just know their pathway to win is ball control. And they run nakeds and boots and things like that. So I don't think they're a team that's going to just pile it on you if you play good defense. They want to play field position. So I can get on board with that, laying that kind of number. Miami, Florida State. Everything in my gut says this is an all-day Florida State play. Yep. But then again, it's really hard for me to look at Florida State and think that they are as talented as Miami. I don't think they are. I do think their quarterback's elite, and I do think Deuce Robinson could take over the game. How do we play this one with Miami laying 4.5 on the road?
Yeah, it feels like if Florida State's going to be in this, it's an over game. If Miami's in total control, it's an under. Just seeing how suffocating that defense is. But I still lean towards Florida State because of what Castellanos brings to the table. They're first in the country in yards per game. Like the first 2 turnovers last week really set the tone for Virginia to be in that thing. And then I look back, I think Virginia had 3 touchdown drives that took up 21 minutes of game time. I think that was the number. So when you talk about possessing the ball and what you want to do, and when you're trying to pull an upset, that couldn't have played more perfect for Virginia. And Florida State still had the ball. Actually, catching the end zone, if not a bobble, and they might still be playing that game. So I look at Miami's defense. The one thing I haven't seen is their secondary hasn't been tested since like the second half of the Notre Dame game. I mean, that's over a month where those guys have just been, maybe getting some bad habits or looking to help out in the run game with how awesome they are at swarming to the ball. So I look at Deuce Robinson being, it sucks that he had that bobble, but he was the best player on the field in that Virginia game. I mean, every time they threw him the ball, he was on point. So I lean towards Florida State. I think that place is going to be absolutely mayhem for an undefeated Miami team coming in, knowing what Florida State has, back against the wall, awful loss, sense of urgency, all that stuff you want in a home team. So I lean with the home team taking the points. I
can't believe y'all aren't there. Look, I'm glad to have y'all in Tuscaloosa. Glad to have y'all in our game. All for it. I'm just surprised you're not there. That's going to be a wild scene down there in Florida State back against the wall. Looking at our game, Vandy, Bama.
Yeah.
10.5, 11.5. I'm obviously calling it, so I'll just abstain from any comments. But your thoughts?
Yeah. There's a lot. I think, it first came out. I looked Saturday night with a couple of books that put out numbers. It was 14, and the next thing I see Sunday, it's 10. So I think you have a crazy amount of support for Vanderbilt because they've been so good to handicappers out there. I mean, Pavia has won 14 games as an underdog, and that's tied for the most with 2 other quarterbacks in the last 20 years. This is their 51st straight game as an SEC underdog, every single game since 2019. And the last time I think they were favored over Tennessee in last game of 2018. So so people, handicapping, obviously they've won plenty of the games, so the money line aspect is there. I still think their offense causes a lot of problems for Bama's defense, and that's where we need to see the next step for Bama's defense. The offense jump-started the game last week, got them off to a great start, and the defense came around the second half. So what Pavia does with the RPOs, Stowers is a guy that really hasn't gotten off, and I thought he was their best player last year. He doesn't have a 100-yard game yet. And the other thing is Vandy really hasn't played a 60-minute game. They've blown a lot of teams out. So the fourth quarter of those games are, guys are sitting or they're just taking the air out of the ball. But I still believe Bama's offense is too strong. I mean, what they look like from a sense of urgency. I mean, they played the first half like they played the first drive against Florida State, which was super impressive. I mean, buttoned up, checks at the line of scrimmage, everybody on the same page, distributing the ball all over the place. It was really, really cool to see Ty Simpson in that element perform on that stage, which means a lot. I mean, you have to be super proud being a former Bama QB and seeing a kid go on the road and play like that. So I think it's a high-scoring game. I do like the over because Vandy's going to get some stuff with how creative they are offensively. Ultimately, I like the over in that game.
Yeah, I like it. Very proud. Most proud I've ever been. Probably maybe of any Bama player in recent history. In the NIL era, probably the most proud I've ever been of Ty Simpson. Just such a good kid. So proud of him, and has done an amazing job. All right, moving on to Texas, Florida, last one. I don't know how you can possibly consider taking the over here. I feel like it's a dead under game. It's at 42.5. It's an absolute hammer on the under. Feels a little too obvious, but I digress. But the side is wild at 4.5. Can you feel confident laying the points here with Texas?
I don't. I don't. I mean, everybody's going to talk about how bad Florida's been offensively, and you look at Texas. I mean, they're supposed to go home and get right after Ohio State and played 3 inferior opponents, and it wasn't the Sark offenses we're used to seeing, and it should have been. I know the quarterback's going to get a ton of stuff thrown at him, but the offensive line, with how good that offensive line has been and going and winning road games like they did last year at A&M and being there and seeing it. And now they're off a bye. I think the running back injuries have hurt also. It sounds like Baxter's not going to be able to go. Wisner's game time. They do get Mosley, the transfers from Stanford, a receiver.
Is he up? He's good to go?
Yeah, it sounds like he's going to be able to play. So that's a big deal. He's a kid that can run every route. And their receivers, like separation and guys not go, Livingstone's the guy that's been the most open, and I would not have said that before the season because I didn't even know who he was. So I don't feel good with Texas because, again, you want to talk about atmospheres and Florida being down or whatever, that place still will be insane for Arch and the boys coming in. So, I'm with you on the under. I think 20 points wins that game for sure. But I think it's a field goal game. I really do. And if Florida could just they got to get the offensive line back. I mean, that was a unit that a lot of people thought of coming into the season as a top 5 unit. They're not even close because everybody's going to talk about the skill guys, but they got to get their things sifted out up front because it's been bad with not being able to protect or even leaning on. I mean, Baugh is a stud of a running back. They got to find a way to get him loose. But that Texas defense is tough. So yeah, I'm with you on the under, and I think it's a field goal game.
Yeah, it's kind of where I'm heading as well. Steve, great stuff, man. Look forward to seeing you on the ESPN family of networks throughout the day. I'm imagining they'll have you all over the place. So appreciate you, brother, as always.
Absolutely, man. Text me when you come over.
Yeah, sounds good. Beers at 4:30. Let's ride. All right, Stanford Steve joining us here. Thanks to our friends at Atlas Senior Living, ATLAS SeniorLiving.com. Go and check them out. The football banner on atlasseniorliving.com will allow you to join the Atlas Public Pick'em contest, and you can win a $150 Amazon gift card if you pick a bunch of winners. To me, seems like a no-brainer. It's so easy to pick winners. You know, just go in there, win $150, and have a little fun along the way. While you're there, check out all the different ways Atlas Senior Living can help your loved ones in their retirement, man. Just an amazing experience. They have assisted living. They have really done an amazing job with memory care and things like that. They just go the extra mile to make sure your loved ones feel like family. So go and check them out, atlasseniorliving.com. All right, when we come back, put a bow in the first hour, kind of set things up in hour number 2, and give you one more little nugget on Bama Vandy before we move to the bigger picture in the SEC. It's next on Mac and Cube. Welcome back, Mac and Cube. One quick nugget. I think a big key in this game is getting Vanderbilt off schedule. I was going through this. Do you realize that Diego Pavia this year has faced two? Vanderbilt's played 5 games. Diego Pavia has been on the field for 2 third and long situations. That is 3rd and 11 plus. 2. So in meaningful minutes, with the starting quarterback on the field, they have stayed on schedule remarkably well. And that, I think, could be very impactful. If you can get Vanderbilt behind the sticks, 3rd and 11 plus, on 3 or 4 different occasions, that could very much spin it in favor of the Tide. All right, when we come back, we want to open it up for your phone calls. Haven't had much of a chance here in the first hour to dial it in. Now is the time. Whatever matchup you want to talk about, whatever games you want to talk about, we are here for you. 800-239-9569, 205-934-834-9450. Your calls are next.